What's the scouting report? What would Monti Ossenfort, the GM, say about the QB back in the day?
It'd be a very short scouting report. It would probably say one word, say next, move on. So we didn't win very many games. I had a problem throwing it to the other team, but had a lot of fun, taught me a lot of life lessons about resiliency, and met a lot of great people there, teammates and people I still consider friends. And so just the experience in general. Quarterback was obviously an important position in the game of football. It was one I was fortunate enough to play. That certainly was a position that I enjoyed playing. Anytime it's a leadership position, I think those lessons that you learn from each of those experiences helps out.
The Field Talk podcast is presented by Rhoback. If you know me, if you've seen me, you know that I have been always rocking Rhoback. Right now I'm going with the polo, but whether it's winter, spring, fall, you name it, I'm probably rocking one of the signature hoodies. I absolutely love them. But Rhoback has you covered from head to toe. They got hats, they got Q-zips, t-shirts, polos, the hoodies I mentioned, long sleeve tees, shorts, joggers, pants, truly the best fit and the best feel. If you haven't yet visited rhoback.com, that's RHOBACK.com. Do me a favor, enter my name, Field, F-I-E-L-D, for 20% off your first order. So much great gear, and it's always dropping new merchandise, including some very, very cool college football themed gear. Rhoback.com, promo code FIELD. Monti Ossenfort is now the Arizona Cardinals GM as the team looks to compete for the 2025 NFC West Championship. But growing up in the state of Minnesota, he was a quarterback that played in college and had aspirations of eventually getting into the NFL. But how exactly did a kid who grew up in Minnesota become an intern for the Minnesota Vikings and then go on to win four Super Bowl championships as a member of the Patriots organization, with other pit stops along the way to eventually become one of just 32 NFL general managers? On today's Field Talk podcast, Monti Ossenfort shares a bit more on his journey from small town kid to NFL GM. Pleasure to be joined by Cardinals GM Monti Ossenfort, who I've known now for, Monty, more years than I probably care to admit, but probably close to 20, which is crazy. But how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, Field. I'm doing good. Yeah, thanks for having me on. And yeah, I was thinking about that too. It's I bet it's probably north of 20 years. I remember, you used to come into the offices in New England, and I was an entry-level employee, and you'd come in and give us some of your time, help us out with some projects. So yeah, it was cool. I remember that. So it's been a long time for both of us since then.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much help I was back then, but hopefully I've learned a little bit along the way. I want to ask you about that. I'm going to call it class of scouts, because it's actually incredible when you think back to like 03 to 05, maybe even 01 to 05 for the Patriots. But you're now in one of 32 of the most prestigious seats in all of football. You're an NFL general manager for the Arizona Cardinals. Where did your football journey begin, though? When did you have the realization that maybe I would work in the world of football?
Yeah, Field. I mean, it's been a great journey. It's been very humbling. I've been very blessed to be able to work around a lot of very talented people, learn from a lot of people, being in a bunch of great organizations. And so for me, I played small college football, Division II, very low level Division II football, University of Minnesota Morris. From there, went to graduate school at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. Got a sports management degree there, and then from there, just it decided I wanted to go in the front office of NFL scouting, NFL personnel, and thought about going the coaching realm. That wasn't a fit for me. I didn't feel like that was my path. And I'm from Ohio. I was fortunate enough to get my first job in personnel down with the Houston Texans, Houston Texans, their inaugural season in 2002. And so that's kind of where it started. That was my first full-time job in the league. And, was just very fortunate from there to have some opportunities that went my way and went from there.
All right. So you grew up in Minnesota for much of your, I think much, if not all of your childhood was spent in Minnesota. And you mentioned you played college ball in Minnesota as well. You're a quarterback. What's the scouting report? What would Monti Ossenfort, the GM, say about the QB back in the day?
It'd be a very short scouting report. It would probably say one word, say next, move on, So, it wasn't, I had a problem. We didn't win very many games. I had a problem throwing it to the other team, but had a lot of fun. Taught me a lot of life lessons about resiliency, and met a lot of great people there, teammates and people I still consider friends. And so that scouting report, let's not go back to that one. But it was a great experience for me.
Okay, so maybe a better evaluator of quarterbacks than an actual quarterback yourself, but
Man, I hope so.
I think we have plenty of evidence. I have never seen you play football, but I at least know that you know how to evaluate players at a high level. But let me ask you, Ben, about like just and maybe this is a small impact, maybe it's a major impact. Do you think playing quarterback helped you at all as an evaluator? It is the central sort of position of all things that take place on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the experience in general. I mean, I think playing college football at any level, it's a great experience, and it's a lot about dedication. It's a lot about being on a team. It's a lot about work ethic and doing what needs to be done and doing whatever your role is to help out your team. And so, quarterback was obviously an important position in the game of football. It was one I was fortunate enough to play, albeit not at a very high level. But yeah, no, I really that certainly was a position that I enjoyed playing. And I think anytime it's a leadership position, and anytime you're have the opportunity to be in a leadership position anywhere along the lines, I think those lessons that you learn from each of those experiences helps out.
You don't have to worry about like bars to clear because as somebody who started one game during his college career, and the only reason why I started is because our two senior safeties missed Friday walkthrough. Like I know what it's like to just be one of the guys on the team, but the life lessons picked up as a teammate were very important along the way. So you mentioned your first full-time job in the NFL was with the Texans in 2002. Sort of how did that come about? And then what's it like being part of an expansion franchise? It's been that many years, 23, since the NFL expanded at the time 32 teams, but that must have been a crazy way to get started in the league when talk about building from scratch. I mean, that is as step ground zero, step one as it gets in the league.
Yeah, it was great, Field. It was great, and so that was my first full time job in the league, and from the previous summer I had done a training camp internship with the Minnesota Vikings. Was there for about a month and a half, and so then went back to my second year at Ohio University and used my contacts at Ohio University to get in touch with someone in the Houston Texans organization. It was somebody over on the business side, and I said, "Hey, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get into personnel. Who would I contact?" And so I was passed on the name of Rob Kissel, and Rob was with the Texans at the time, and he was involved in doing the hiring for the internship process, and had a couple interviews with Rob, and was fortunate enough that cleared a few hurdles there, and was able to get that position. And so going down there in Houston, and it's a great football city, and that was an exciting time. Football returned to the state, to the city of Houston, and that was great, and it was starting from scratch. And I joined up. They had been going for a little over a year, and so there was many of their operations were going, and so I kind of joined midstream. But that was great to see. I mean, it was hard building a team. You certainly are starting from zero, and you had to have a mix of the expansion players and also the draft picks, and just sharing the excitement with the city. That was a great experience to be a part of.
Man, that is, I can't even imagine what expansion would be like today in the NFL. Maybe it's not likely. 32 seems to fit pretty nicely. And, we got a lot of the major cities covered, but a crazy time in 2002. So not long after you're in Houston, you end up in New England with the Patriots. What's it like going from a team that is, again, building from the very first step of the roster construction process to going to New England, where every player that you're scouting, you're measuring against a player, or most of the time you're measuring against somebody who has contributed to high level winning, Super Bowl in 2001, and then you guys repeat in 03 and 04. And then also going to an organization where you have to maintain the standard, but it's a very unique way of going about business. Obviously, Bill Belichick, his way that he operated and does the scouting process between being the head coach and effectively the GM is unconventional, especially in today's NFL where almost every team has a head coach and a separate GM.
Yeah, Field, that was two very different situations, and both of them were very beneficial to me as we talked about the start of the Houston franchise and getting that up and running, and then going to a place that was up and running and they had all their processes and structures in place and defined of what they were looking for, and they had a more established roster and more established veterans. And so just seeing really two different ends of the spectrum there, and where those franchises were in just the evolution and the competitive nature of where they were in the league, that was a great thing to compare and contrast. And so there was great things for me to take from, the first year in Houston was my first learning of the league. So everything was new and I didn't have anything to compare it to. And then to go into New England and just get thrown into the fire with that and learn and see Coach Belichick and see all the people, Scott Pioli and all the people around there that had their system already in place. It was a great learning experience for me. And certainly a lot of those things I've learned have been throughout, they've been tenets of my career throughout.
All right. So my first summer with the Patriots was 2004. And I forgive if I forget a couple of names here, but I think I've got most of them. At the time on the scouting staff, and I remember the scouts would come for usually a week or 10 days during training camp to kind of take stock of the roster and catch up and, think about the fall ahead. At the time, you, John Robinson, who would go on to become the Titans GM, Thomas Dimitroff, Falcons, Scott Pioli would eventually become the Chiefs GM, Adam Peters. Amongst the coaches are people that were either in scouting but now coaching, Brian Flores and Josh McDaniels. I know I'm forgetting at least one general manager in there, and I'm already kicking myself. Oh, Nick Caserio as well, of course, with the Houston Texans now. Did you have any sense at the time that you were working in what would end up being one of the most prolific, and again, I'm going to call it scouting classes, probably in league history? Or when you're in the moment and you're all young, aspiring scouts who probably all want to one day become a GM, is it hard to evaluate guys that are going to eventually separate from the rest of this massive group of scouts that all want to have the seat that you have now?
Yeah, I mean, Field, I don't think any of us had any idea, what was in store. I think that was a special group, and I think at the time, it was more just recognition of people around that football was important to them and doing the best that they could in whatever role that they had at the time. That was the sole focus. And so expectations were high. What each person's role, they were expected to perform at a high level. And so, just to be around those guys and to learn and to see how they went about their work. And, I think we all recognize that because that was the expectation. That was the price of admission to come into the building. To be able to perform at a high level. And so, I do feel that we recognize that. But, I don't think any of us kind of would at that time would look forward and say, however many 5, 6 GMs, 5, 6 head coaches or whatever it might be, that was a special group of people.
Do you, not much of what you do, the Cardinals didn't hire you to do easy things, right? They hired you to do hard things because you're very talented. It can do things that 99.9% of the football population can't. But does it make your job a little easier when you can probably call someone that you've known since you were, 25 years old, and now they're a fellow general manager? Can negotiations be slightly friendlier and easier to execute?
Yeah, I mean, I think negotiations are a part of that, but I think it's also it's just calling and having a friendly ear on the other side of the phone, And I think everybody faces their own challenges and their own issues. Each team, different things come up each day. And, the ability to pick up the phone and ask something or, have somebody to listen to, or, maybe somebody's been through something, or maybe it's not even something competitive with the roster. Maybe it's something else that's going on in the organization or something that's going on in the facility. To be able to talk to guys like, Nick and AP and those guys that, I trust, I consider them friends first and foremost, colleagues second, but just to be able to have those conversations. And then sure, the negotiations, those are fun because, hey, if somebody calls me with something or I call them with something and they think it's out of left field, we can get out of here. Come on, we don't get real, And so we can be real with each other, and we can quickly get to it. So yeah, it's great to have those resources in the league that we can reach out to.
You guys are all you're all very busy individuals right now, all trying to compete for a Lombardi trophy. But I feel like, 25, 30 years from now, when you guys have all hopefully enjoyed very long, successful careers in your respective chairs, a reunion would be pretty epic of all the people that were part of that staff.
There'd be a lot of stories to tell there, Field.
I'll serve shrimp cocktail and walk around the room. That would be a great place to be a fly on the wall. But you are, I tell people all the time, the world of scouting, and I have a very brief exposure to it, but it's incredibly competitive world, right? You are simultaneously working with people to help find great players to make your roster better, but you're also, as a young scout, thinking to yourself, the guy sitting to my right or my left wants to be a GM, and so do I. How do I prove that I am worthy of getting more opportunities and consideration? I'm not trying to make you toot your own horn here, but you start to rise up the ranks in New England. You start to take on more and more responsibility. Your region grows into half the country, or you're overseeing the entirety of a college scouting operation. You're getting opportunities to leave New England, which you eventually do for Tennessee. What were some things that you think were influential in allowing you to kind of separate yourself and move up in this highly competitive world?
Yeah, I think a lot of people certainly have aspirations, and that's important. I think that's, everybody should strive to reach the pinnacle of whatever their goal is. And I think, it might sound cliche, but there's no better way to do that than to be very good at the job you're doing. And so, there's no way to prove that you're ready for the next job until you master the one that you're currently doing. And so I think there's a way to do that and to be really, really good at the job that you're currently doing, but also at the same time, keeping your eyes open and more importantly, your ears open about what else is going on around the organization, around the league, so that when there is time, hey, I've done my work as best as I can. I've done everything I can to help my team win in my role. Well, how is the rest of the building working? How are we setting up the scouting department? How does the pro and the college scouting department interact? And I think, witnessing those things and coming up with ideas and saying, hey, I like how this works, or, maybe this isn't exactly how I would do it if I ever had this opportunity. I think constantly just evaluating what's going on, but really first and foremost, like I tell people, I've told our own guys this, I've told other people this. It's hard to say that you're ready for the next job until you've become a master at your current job. And I think that's the most important thing.
The life of an area scout is one that I think has, I don't know about become glamorized, but I think people hear like, yeah, I'm a scout for, the New England Patriots, the Tennessee Titans, or Houston Texans. Like, that must be awesome. So they just pay you to, like, identify great players and just, and tell the GM or whoever it is that's calling the shots, like, this is it. But what's an area scout job like? Because, I hear some of the stories, and it takes you to some unique places around the country. That's for sure.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I would say this. I mean, I'd say the life of an area scout is a very good one, and
Yeah.
it's a very hard one at the same time. And I think area scouts it's a unique job in that they're detached from the team. They are out, and most of them don't live in the same city as the team. And it's hard for them to feel connected. They're going to a different school every day from, call it, August through Thanksgiving. And then there's more travel in the All-Star game season, the combine, pro days. So they're upwards of 150 nights on hotels a year. And I think what's hidden in that is that's 150 nights away from home. And so I think, that's a challenge. That's a challenge for the guys that have families, the guys that have significant others. It's a hard life to not be able to be home. And so, when the phone rings at night and you're in a Fairfield Inn somewhere, God knows where in the country, and you can't be there for your family. And that's hard. That's hard on the area scout. That's hard on the families back home. And so, but it is also a very rewarding job when it comes to the draft and it comes to preseason scouting, when you're looking for practice squad players or looking for claims, or you're obviously draft day and you call somebody's name that you scouted. And so, it is a challenge. It's a hard part of the job. It's a big self-motivation. Like it's every day, it's answering the bell, and it's late nights in a hotel room, and then you get up and do it again. And so it's a great life, and it's also a hard life that it's not always as glamorous as it sounds.
I'm imagining that rising up the ranks is not just other people believing in you and you being able to take on more responsibility, but probably somewhere in the line, it's believing in yourself that, like, hey, it turns out I can scout football players. Because again, I keep saying this, but it's worth reiterating. It's a highly competitive field. Every scouting staff, you're talking about maybe upwards of, depending on the way the franchise is constructed, 10, 12, 15 members on the college side. Who knows? It just depends. But a lot of people that all want to be in the seat that you're in now. Was there like a player that you recall where, maybe it was a small school guy, day three player, or somebody that you're out on the road and you felt conviction on this player, you bring it back to the office and you're like, I'm not saying this guy's going to go in the top 10, but this is a player that can meaningfully help our roster. and it comes to be, and it kind of validated your own belief that you've got the eyes that are required to be a good scout.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always tough field because I think, there's plenty of examples of guys um, that as a scout, we teach our guys to have conviction one way or the other. Like, don't, whether your bosses or whoever's in the room completely agrees with you or completely disagrees with you, just have conviction. And so, for me in my career, I think it's really more so about, anytime that I put something down on a piece of paper, whether it's a grade or my report or whatever it was, it's what I believed in. And so there's been far more than I'd like to admit, times when I've been wrong. And there's going to be
We
far
all have.
more that I am still wrong. And that's reality. It's an imperfect science. There's also been guys that, I've hit on. And so I think for me, the most important thing is, when you go through and you have a couple years of NFL experience under your belt, is looking back on those players and say, hey, like, I really like this guy and it panned out. Okay, great. I really like this guy. It didn't pan out. Well, where did I miss? How did I miss on the evaluation? Did I miss on the athletic ability, the speed, or what was it? And so, I think it's more so that the more we always talk about building a Rolodex of players. I don't know if anybody knows what a Rolodex is anymore, but the more players that you can see, it just adds to your memory bank. And so you can go back and say, hey, like, this guy reminds me of this guy who he worked out because of this. And so I think this guy's going to face a similar path. And so to me, and that's true right now for what I do, like, the more players that I see, the better I get. And that's just the nature of scouting. And it's, unfortunately, there's still going to be plenty of guys that we get wrong, and there's various reasons for that, but it's the nature of the beast. But I think the more that you can continue to stack those players, it just helps anybody become a better evaluator.
So there was a time when you were sort of annually mentioned amongst the people that, like, this could be a GM in short order here, or this could be the person that you hear about that interviews with insert franchise X. But you end up eventually, you take a job with Arizona. Like, you eventually, like, you decide options are good, but this is where I want to be. What is it about the Cardinals job that maybe, like, drew you in and said, if I'm going to make this leap from what I was doing to becoming an NFL general manager for the first time, this is why this franchise, this city, this fan base is the right fit for me?
Yeah, I mean, I think those opportunities come, and uh, you prepare, and each situation is different. And I think I had some opportunities to interview for jobs before the Arizona job. Didn't go my way. Some I felt I was close on, just didn't quite tip my way. And so when the Arizona job came open and I was able to interview it, it felt right. And so I think through all the years, my years in Houston, New England, Tennessee, um, you're constantly, hey, if I ever get a chance, and if I ever get a chance, I think I would do it this way. And then each time you maybe kind of tweak it. I don't know about that. I would change this. And so, when the Arizona opportunity came up, I felt like it was at a point where the plan that I had, I felt confident in how I felt things should be ran, and how I felt a department should be put together, and how I felt a team should be built. And thankfully, Michael Bidwell shared with me the beliefs in how I saw an organization running. And so that's always a key. There's always got to be that alignment, and that it's got to be something that works for everybody, because it's such a key relationship. The ownership, the GM, the head coach, those are all big things. And so having a plan for that structure, and really laying out, hey, this is who I am, this is what I believe in, and if it's a fit, great, and if it's not, well, it's probably not going to work anyway. And so that's why this was really intriguing to me, because it everything fit and everything worked out.
The draft is my favorite event of the year. I love the games. I love the season as well, but I really live for the draft. I'm so fortunate to do the draft covers now for ESPN. And, like, I'm probably too far deep into the 2026 class with opinions that really shouldn't matter because we have a whole college football season to play. But it's kind of like a disease in some ways, in a good way. But the draft itself, like, what's the energy like sitting in the general manager chair? Which, not that you weren't influential in drafts for a long time, but You now have had the chance, a few cracks at it, to be the guy making the decisions. What's the energy like being in that chair compared to some of the other chairs you had previously?
I mean, in short field, it's really cool. It's really cool. It's it's the culmination of over a year of work, and you know that you've seen what goes into that, and a lot of people put a lot of time and effort into those few nights, and so we talk about it all the time. We put all those hours and all that travel and all the nights in the hotel and all those reports and how many thousands of players that we actually look at to pick seven of them,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
but you have to do it. There's no other way around it because nobody knows how draft day is going to go. And um, I think the coolest thing about draft day is that uh, you have a plan and you think how things might unfold, and then it goes completely opposite of what you think, and that's just how it works. And so I think I think just preparation is the key. Preparation and having everything lined up and just being ready for any situation that presents itself, because it's a cool few nights there, and it's a great thing to be a part of.
Those mock drafts can be pesky, right? You think you have an idea of what's going to take place, and then Field gets one of 32 correct. He gets Cam Ward only, and everything else he misses on. Um, so your first drafts, you own the third pick, and then within a matter of, I'm sure, I can't recall exactly how many minutes it was, but you execute two trades. First night, your first draft, two gigantic trades, by the way. You go from 3 to 12, and then 12 back up to 6, right? Um, how did that and the video that your Cardinals media team released was absolutely sensational. Fans, people like me, I love seeing the art of the negotiation. But what's that? I mean, that's got to be a pressure cooker. Maybe you feel like you're an Olympic athlete there for a minute, where you're just sprinting for Usain Bolt's 10 seconds, because you make two huge swings in a matter of moments. And I got to imagine that everything is a house of cards, right? Like, if you don't get the deal done with Houston, then you can't make the deal with Detroit, right? Like that. What was that like? What was the energy like in that half an hour or so of real time when you're trying to execute two major moves in your first night in this specific job?
Yeah, Field, that was a boy baptism by fire there. That
Ooh,
we
boy.
we got things going there pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think with that in particular, I mean, I think going into that draft, we knew that um, the situation the roster was in, with that, if we would have the opportunity to drop back and add picks, it was going to be something that we were interested in. And then you always have to say, okay, if we drop back to whatever spot, okay, these are the players that we think are going to be available. And if we drop back further than that, okay, these are the players. And you don't know, but you try to, as best you can, get an idea. And so, we actually in the week leading up to the draft, we in our process, we tend to have our board. We like to have our board set a week before the draft and be done with just the evaluation portion. And then the final week of the draft, all we do is we talk scenarios and situations. And so one of the situations that came up was, okay, if we drop back past a certain point, what can we use to then come back up and still have a net positive in picks that we gain from that first trade? And so we walked through a million different scenarios that would happen. It wasn't exactly the exact scenario that unfolded, but we walked through those scenarios. And so I think the key, though, to all this is, it's just like in a game, in any classic game, there's 5 or 6 things that have to happen for the exact thing that happens to take place. And it just so happened that worked out. And so, we did that. We did the trade with Houston to drop back. And then we started trying to claw our way back up. And so, and then that was, we were at the mercy of what happened between pick 3, 4, 5. We had to wait to see, okay, who'd be interested in dropping back? What player are we even interested in going up for a player? And so, I think like that gets thrown out a lot. Hey, team A can drop back and then they can move up. But like, that's a lot easier said than done, in terms of there's a lot of variables that have to fall, and that night things happen to fall our way. And who knows, like, hopefully I'm involved in a lot more drafts and we may never have a situation occur like that again. It just so happened to be our first one. And that was a fun night.
I just remember watching the video, and we saw a lot of how the sausage was made in that specific scenario. And every time it was just like you'd be sitting there and like, negotiating on the phone and just be like, yep, good, good, good. Like just remarkably stoic and calm. Meanwhile, like I get nervous negotiating trades in my fantasy football league and I break a sweat. So your poise certainly goes well beyond mine. As you think about, you reflect to your football journey, 20 plus years in the NFL now, are there specific like lessons along the way that you think maybe if you're a young football mind that wants to one day be in the seat of an NFL general manager, you think are maybe most poignant that you have probably relied upon throughout your career more than others?
I think really, a lot of my foundational beliefs are rooted in that Patriot system. And I think it's more so just in terms of team building, and then not only team building, but just organizational building. And so, I think for me, it's all about finding the right people that are willing to do whatever it is their role is and to do it at a high level. And if you can get those people, whether you're talking about players or staff, scouts, trainers, coaches, janitors, nutrition people, kitchen staff, like if you have the right people and doing things and it's important to them and it's showing to them why what they're doing is important to in their own way help us be successful. That to me is the goal. That's the goal of everybody that we bring into our organization. Players, staff alike. And, I think that's something that's always stuck with me. Listen, it's a privilege to be in the NFL. It's the best league in the world. It's the most competitive league in the world. I'm extremely fortunate and blessed to be able to do this. And, I think that's the way we all should be in this league, and anybody that's involved, whether it's working for a team or covering a team or whatever it is, like, this is cool. This is awesome to be involved in this. And we have a responsibility to the game. And in our organization, we have a responsibility to our teammates and the people to do everything that we can to help us be put in a position to be successful.
It really, there's nothing like it. It is truly, I know this is probably just, it's an adage that's overused now, but it beats working, being able to be a part of the NFL in some way, whether you're on the inside or the outside like myself. But Monti, I really appreciate you joining us today. I know you're always a busy man and the season's just around the corner, but I can't wait to watch you guys this upcoming fall, and best of luck the rest of the way here in training camp.
Thanks a lot, Field. Talk soon.
All right, so a little bit of an audible here, new location. Thanks to all of you that have been hanging out with us throughout the entirety of our conversation with Cardinals GM Monti Ossenfort. As always, I just love hearing about how these GMs got to where they are today, the most prestigious seat in football scouting. Very, very hard to get to, but I love Monti's humility. I love the fact that he's seen a lot of different things. A guy who has been at the very top of the mountain when working with the Patriots, winning multiple Super Bowl rings, and a guy who's also seen what it's like to have to build things up from closer to the bottom. I'm optimistic about the Cardinals this season. As always, a huge thanks to Roback for powering this podcast. If you haven't yet, head over to roback.com. That's RHOBACK.com. Check out all of the incredible gear. At the time this episode goes live for the first time, recent new products include an awesome launch in collaboration with the Bryan brothers, who have been on this podcast before. And as always, we appreciate you guys checking it out either in podcast form or video form. If you're on YouTube, press that subscribe button. Huge help to us always. And if you're listening on the podcast somewhere, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and always listen. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon here on the Field Talk Podcast.